To Blitz and Bloom. My name is Tanya Henderson, and I'm your host. My guest today is Emmanuel Manny Rugamba, and his story is much bigger than football. Because before there were college scholarships, before the Browns, before the CFL, there was a life being shaped by survival, movement, and family. He was born in a refugee camp in Zambia, and after his very large family was displaced by conflict in Rwanda, his mother brought the family to the United States to build a new life. Then comes the football story. The position changes, the grind, the way he leveraged football to support his family and make space for himself in this world. But the part I'm more interested in is the man underneath it all. This is someone who has lived in systems that built him and systems that tested him. Someone who has had to prove himself, rebuild himself, and now step into a different chapter. Not just asking what kind of athlete he was, but what kind of man he wants to be. Manny, welcome to Blitz and Bloom.
Wow. Thank you so much for that introduction, T. That was very warm to hear, and I appreciate those kinds words. Even hearing you speak about it and just going through it, it's a testament to the platform that you have here and the respect you give all of your guests on your podcast. I really appreciate that intro. Thank you.
Thank you. It's absolutely my pleasure. It's really just, having the opportunity to really tell the story behind all of the amazing athletes I had the opportunity of working with and meeting. And there's just so much more to you guys than, what people see on the TV and social media and all of that. So looking forward to being able to tell your story. So before we get into the teams, the leagues, the football and all of that, I want to start with, who do you believe Emmanuel Rugamba is right now? Stripped of football, stripped of titles, stripped of performance?
Man, that's a great question. I feel like right now you take the football titles, the performance, everything around it, and I would say I'm a builder in that sense. Football, in a sense, revealed me at the end of the day, but at my core, it never defined me, who I was. I'm someone who creates, leads, and finds purpose and impact through raising people's floors, I would say, and those are the floors around me. I feel like the more you can do together, the better. And that's one thing I would say Emmanuel Gumba is. It's a builder of not just people, but of hope.
I love that. It's very impactful, and I think it's very mature of you to be able to recognize those things about you already, especially going into such a new chapter of your life and feel so comfortable in where you are right now instead of being in that middle ground of not really knowing who you are without football. It sounds like you just never really lost yourself in football. You always knew at your core who you were.
Mm. Yeah, and it's definitely something that it's nothing new when you're talking about athletes and after the game, especially giving so much of your life to it. These days, they start as early as second grade, first grade, and if you're fortunate enough to go play professionally, you realize that you've been around the sport longer than you haven't. And it's just a testament to my family, honestly, and the foundation that I've had on them, and them just always reminding each other where it is we've come from, what it is we've been through, and just knowing that life is more than any title that is given to you. And we just try to keep family very close, and in that sense, it's where I've kind of formed my identity.
Speaking of family, when you think about your beginning, who was setting the tone, the emotional tone in your life early on?
I would say it was my family, of course, and the leader of my family would be my mother on that end, raising me and my siblings here in the Chicagoland area. And when you're talking about that emotional tone, I would have to say each and every one of them in that sense, because it's not like emotion was something that, we were very fortunate to sit in, we were kind of like making the best of every day and trying to just see what we're going through that day and build day by day. When we're talking about sitting through the emotion, our household wasn't the household that was filled with emotion, but it was full with expectation, right? There was a strength and a discipline and a perspective in our home that even if things weren't easy, we always felt that there's better days to come in that sense. When you're talking like the emotional fortitude in the house, it was reluctant on discipline. And my mother, I would say, would believe that raising 10 plus kids on her own, barely speaking English, putting herself through nursing school, working night shifts at a variety of different places. As one of her children, you see that. And, you know, when we're talking about emotion, you don't see her complain. You don't see her ask herself, why is it so hard? You just see a smile on her face and understanding that, you know, as long as her family is with her, there's not many things that you can't endure. So I would say each and every one of my family members have helped on the emotional standpoint in the household. But just watching my mother's resilience and discipline day in and day out, even to this day, is something that I like to hang my hat on.
Speaking of your mother and kind of getting into that, obviously she's been a big keystone in your life and the life of all of your siblings. Is there something that you understand about her now that you could not have understood about her as a kid?
I would say like her love for others, like being in a bunch of locker rooms, being able and fortunate enough to travel across the United States, travel to Canada, and build relationships. I used to never understand how she would just steward so many relationships at once. So many at once, like aunts, uncles, doesn't matter if you've seen them for 2 years, 3 years. She is continuously stewarding relationships. And that's one thing that I think I've learned from her is that you can never give somebody enough love. And people need it more than you would expect. And if you're somebody that can, you know, be consistent in that and people understand and know that whenever you're calling, it's a form of love in that sense. It goes an extremely long way. So that's one thing I would say she definitely taught is to just build your relationships and kind of nourish them as you go along. She recently just had her 50th birthday party, and we were celebrating here this past weekend. And the amount of appreciation that was given to this woman, I had me sitting there thinking, like, I really wonder what my 50th birthday party is going to look like. Because to her, it seemed like to me, it was the best birthday party I've been a part of. And these people were so genuine and appreciative of the calls that she made, the checking in on them, the flights and weddings that she always goes to, the high school graduations. So just her continuous output of love towards people and stewarding relationships is the greatest thing. One of the greatest things she's taught me for sure.
Man, she just sounds like such an amazing woman. You were so lucky to grow up with a woman with such power, with such drive, with such positivity. And like, obviously for you, that was kind of the norm. But was there a moment where you realized, like there was kind of a light bulb moment of how extraordinary the work and everything that your mom is doing truly is?
I would say it was very early on. One of my early college visits. It was like either freshman year of freshman year of high school, or in that middle school area. I was transitioning from playing from one team for a city and getting ready to play for another city. There was a college coach that I was introduced to. And I was just kind of sharing with him, like, you know, who I was and the family that I come from. And then I mentioned my mother, and the way I was looking at him like, this guy's, you know, opportunity to give somebody a scholarship. He's a very important person. And I tell him about my mother, and he's just kind of blown away. And then I realized my mother's not normal by any means. And I kind of really started to notice it because that was the first time I did, but the more I would talk about her, or the more people would be like, oh, your story is this and the third. And I'd be like, well, let me tell you about my mother. It was something early on where she's kind of like a superhero in that sense, like 7 feet tall. You start seeing her as that, and you start understanding that, raising a family of 10 and putting yourself through nursing school and barely speaking English, and she just did it with a smile on her face. And like some of the things today that, not to say people don't have struggles, people have struggles, but just it's very hard to look at circumstances and feel that somebody can't do it or not see the positive in every situation. So I think that light bulb moment was the first time I introduced uh, the person that my mother is to like a very, very important coach. And once once I got the feedback from that and just realized like my mom is a superhero and she doesn't speak on it though. That's why it was like a light bulb, because she's just like, this is this is what I do. This is what life is. Like it's just part of her identity in that sense. And um very, very fortunate, but definitely a light bulb moment early on. And even still, like I still get those light bulb moments. She might do something or say something and I just look at her and I'm like, fathom or how do you even get to that point? So it's definitely something that I'm going to continue having light bulb moments with as I grow older, and I look forward to it for sure.
I mean, to us, when we're younger, our parents are just our parents. And that's kind of what paints the picture and sets the standard. And she set such a high level of standard and expectation and what is possible. And to you, that was just always normal. And then you kind of get out into the real world. And like you said, you're like, I understand people have struggles, but also I've seen what's possible. Therefore, it's possible. And it just kind of sets you up for this really like anything is possible approach to life.
Yeah, definitely. That anything possible approach to life it makes me think of my mother had so many things going on. She signed us up for basketball in the third grade, and the cutoff age was 10. I was 9 years old. So she signed me up for football. And it was just something that I did every summer. One day I told her, I was like, Mom, I'm either going to go to college for free or I'm going to get into some kind of trade or something like that. And she's like, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I would say like, no, I'm going to go to college for free. That's the only way that I'm going, as if it's completely paid for. She's like, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. And once I got the scholarship, that's when I realized like her exact like attitude and mentality is the reason why I got it. It's like when she talks about her nursing school, she says, well, I didn't really see any other option when I came to America. I saw it as I'm going to be a nurse and I'm going to go the school route and that's what it is. I don't know if I can't speak English or not. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to become a nurse. And she said she just told herself that every day. So like that's something I remember and I would tell myself that every day. And when it happened, I was like, man, I don't know if she realized it, but her approach worked. And like, that's the approach that I tried to take everywhere with me from that point. And it was the first time where I saw it and it was tangible and it was like, it came to life. So that mentality that she had is something that I still try to hold on to today. But the first time that it manifested in that way was, the first scholarship, but she was the first person that showed me that the through her consistency and going to nursing school and the way she breaks it down as if it was just inevitable for her. And I was like, well, if it's inevitable for you, I'm your son, so it should be inevitable for me too.
I think situations like that kind of can go two different ways. It can go the way where you just were like, yeah, like that's just what happens and we just do these things. Or that pressure can get to people and they see it more as, oh, like people have really high expectations of me and I feel like I'm never good enough. Was there ever a moment where you struggled with the expectations you felt were put on you?
Mm, I would say yes. there was a point, and for any athlete too, there's going to be so many different setbacks with the expectations. You're not going to get every scholarship. You're going to go on visits where they're going to look at you and they might say, man, we love you, but we don't have a scholarship for you. And that's when the self-talk and the self-dialogue kind of creeps in, where you might be telling yourself, I don't know if I can do this, or maybe I'm out of my league, or whatever the case may be. And I just try to not focus on those kind of thoughts because they're going to come, and everybody's human in that sense. And I would say there was any form of setback, it's your first initial thought. You're like, feeling disappointed in yourself, but trying to have like a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset on that, and seeing it as a opportunity or a lesson learned in that sense, using it as a springboard where something that negatively happens becomes something positively happening. I know I've heard a coach say there's no such thing as losses, it's just lessons. And that's what I've tried to put forth, but definitely multiple times when you're chasing a dream, chasing your first scholarship, you're chasing an NFL career, you're chasing a CFL career, you might be even chasing one play. You might be chasing a play and that play goes sideways, but man, there are like 55 other more plays to go throughout the game. You need to focus on whatever the case is. And it's something you've got to revisit continuously, right? You got to continue to steward it and understand that you're going to have different experiences where you're going to fail, but trying not to focus on your failure so much and just focus on what that end goal is for you, and giving yourself the positive attitude that you deserve.
I feel like I could talk to you about you and your relationship with your mom for the entire day and your family and do a whole episode on it. But I'm gonna leave us with one more question specifically to do with her and your family. What do you hope she knows about the man she helped build?
I hope she knows that I'd never quit on something that sits on my heart. If there's something that sits on my heart, I'm going to try. I'm going to try every which way to do it. If it's something that it's going to cross my mind more than 2 times, I'm going to try to put myself in the best position to acquire that or to feel that feeling in my heart, and do it in a manner that reflects who she is as a person, I would say. And when we're talking about a few words at the top of my head is with discipline, with positivity, and with love for others.
I love that. That's a good way to wrap up the family and mom conversation. Going into football now, you started playing football when you were 9 years old because you were not old enough for basketball. What was it that football started to give you in life that you weren't already getting?
So I grew up in a house with a bunch of siblings, about 10 brothers and sisters. And as the youngest, you got an opinion, but it's not much. Like, I would say that is the first time football, when I put on my helmet, I remember like so clearly. It was like one of the first times I was having self-dialogue without other people's inputs in it. It's like if I was the youngest, I would be like, I think I want to go walk to the Blockbuster or something and go order a movie. And then I think I should probably ask one of my siblings for that. But then when I put on my helmet at 9 years old, I was like, I can run over there and physically try to impose my will on somebody, and I don't have to ask for permission. Obviously there's a structure to it, but it's like, one, it's the first time I can hear myself, and two, it was the first time I could tell myself or like gauge something outside of education. I could gauge, am I getting better or am I getting worse? And I can talk to myself about that. And I could tell myself, you know, this is who you are. You are good at football. And that's when I was like, oh, my opinion matters a lot more to myself. Going back to kind of my mom and how she tells herself and feels herself positivity, that was like my first time where I could hear myself after um, while growing up in a household with, for better or for worse, I appreciate everything about my siblings, but that football field really gave me an arena in my own head that I was allowed to do whatever I wanted in that sense.
It sounds like it was kind of your first kind of dip into a little bit of freedom and self-expression. And like you said, just you were able to be alone in your own head and not have to think about anyone else.
Yeah, that's one of football's biggest gifts it gave me.
So really, it was the best thing that could have happened that you were not old enough to play basketball, or else you would have just been playing basketball with siblings.
Literally, it was the best thing that could happen by far. I would say it's still. Even my mom, when she brings it up, she laughs at it so much because she was just driving around the rec center for like 45 minutes and saw a football sign. It's like, sign up today. That's literally what we did. So yeah, it was a great thing that happened to me.
When you were playing football, did it stop being just fun and start becoming more of your identity and who you were and where you were going in life?
I would say it was during the time when I used to play for this team called, I would two times I would say. I used to play for this team called the Bolingbrook Trojans. It was my first Little League team that I played for. Then I went on to go play for the Naperville Patriots. At the time, they were like not rivals at all, but definitely both prestige programs within the communities. And the uh, Naperville, the Naperville coaches kind of handpicked or like wanted to see who they wanted to come over. And when I got the opportunity to do that, I was like, I know people who didn't get this opportunity. Well, I should probably take advantage of this opportunity. And then fast forward, we end up moving to Naperville, not because I'm playing football, but a completely different event occurred. And that was my first time playing middle school football. We didn't have middle school football in the previous city. That was my into the community in that sense, where I didn't have as rough as a transition, I would say, becoming a new student because of my success on the football field. And that was the first time I actually got the nickname Manny. I never asked for it. It was a coach that told me. He was like, "What's your name?" I was like, "Emmanuel." It's like, man, that's got way too many vowels. I don't know how we're going to say that on the field. By the time we finish that, like, play's going to be over. And I remember being like, "You're absolutely right. That is definitely really long of a name." He's like, "I'm going to call you Manny." You like that? I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine with that. It's quick. We can say it on the field." Became his communication thing. And then all my teammates would call me that. And then they'd see me in the hallways in middle school. And they'd call me Manny. And that kind of is how that thing was born. It's funny you ask about the identity, but football literally gave me a nickname that I didn't even ask for.
That's amazing. And I also appreciate that the coach actually went as far to ask if it was okay if they could use that name. Because I feel like a lot of times coaches give players nicknames and don't ask. And like people are like, "Oh, I don't really like being called that." So I think that's really amazing that he actually went to the trouble of making sure that that was okay with you. And, that's a name that's carried on with you for forever.
Right. I was actually very fortunate to, I had a assembly that I did at that middle school back in, back in October. And that coach went on to become he went on to become the athletic director at the school. And to this day, we still talk about that story. And it was definitely a full circle moment. But Yeah, he was very respectful in asking that, and I do appreciate him. And I agreed with him. Like Emmanuel was way too yeah, on the field. Like even to this day, I'm thinking professional football, college football. There's no way you're getting that name out with all the different calls you have to say at the same time. People refer to each other as numbers, but Manny's even quicker than a number.
I mean, can you imagine GP trying to say your whole name over and over again?
Nah, GP with the mouthpiece in his mouth, he's not saying that. When you hear GP yelling on the field, you gotta just you get used to what he's saying and how he's saying it, and it might not actually be words, but you know because you've been next to him for so long throughout camp, throughout the season. You just know there's different cues that means different senses of urgency for him.
It's actually a really great way of putting that. There's kind of GP has his own language, and I think kind of every player does, but I think GP stands out a lot where he more is just making noises and hand signals, and everyone is like, oh, I know exactly what that means.
You got to know your personnel. KYP.
You could see what GP wanted on film in like the most blown out, zoomed out view. You could just see the like hand gesture, and you're like, oh, like I know what level of angry GP was in that moment just by like
Exactly.
how he flicked his hand.
You can know. You got to know. And when you have a vet like that who's been around the game, your best bet is to just sit back and try to understand what he's saying the best of your ability.
Need like a GP translator for the rookies, which, I guess that's kind of TJ.
Yeah, that goes hand in hand. TJ is the GP translator. Wow. That is a great way to put it, Coach T.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad we've solved that. I think, interesting to look kind of at other teams and be like, okay, like who's the noisemaker, who's the translator, and then they give all the information to all of the remainder of the players.
Yeah, there's a whole life there's a whole life inside of the life of the football field. It's interesting with other people watching and listening. There's a lot you can learn within the locker room.
Very much so. So transitioning into, middle school football, high school football, the game gets bigger. And when the game gets bigger, so do the opportunities and payoffs and the pressure. More specifically for you going into college, this is where football became something more than just football for you. Because once you realized that the game could help your mom and your family, it stopped just being about playing well and it became about the opportunity to take some pressure off at home, about doing something for your family. And I was reading an article and you were talking about how when the first scholarship came and you saw the look on your mom's face, it was a defining moment, not just because of what you earned, but because of what it meant. Like, okay, I can actually do something with this. I can help. I can support. I can give back to the mom that has given me so much. And that's how you end up in Iowa. So when you get there, what hit you first, the opportunity or the reality of the situation?
Um, I would say the opportunity. The first thing is what hit me about it, the opportunity, the situation. Sitting in Phil Parker's office uh, and seeing the defensive backs that he had on the wall. And even when I got there, I was fortunate enough to be around Desmond King, Greg Maben, Anthony Gare, plenty of vets where they've done so much. And that's when I realized, like, these guys, their next step is another form of opportunity and reality, where I was just kind of coming in and seeing, my short time there and just realizing that year with them and understanding that, like you said, there's an opportunity to help back at home with this. It was something that blew me away initially. Iowa had one of the top facilities in the country. Nutrition was top tier. The weight room was top tier. The campus looked as if it was on a movie. You had everything you needed to win in that sense, I would say. And that's the first thing I saw was the opportunity. The reality, though, when I looked on that depth chart, whew, I was something. I didn't even know that I didn't know the numbers went down that far. I didn't even know they went down that far. I think I was like number 7. I said, man, like, when do you? I didn't even think, in high school you don't carry 7 corners, 15 corners. You walk into a room, there's 20 seats in there. That's where the reality kicked in. Like, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity here, but man, you have to fight, claw, and scratch for it. So it was exciting, but they went hand in hand.
What did college football teach you about how athletes get conditioned both mentally and emotionally?
It taught me that if you don't make time to, personally evaluate your mental and your physical, you're going to be pushed to your limits in that sense. And, it's a high energy environment, high risk environment, injuries involved, fast pace. And a lot of times people's mental and physical can kind of slip through the cracks if they don't take the time to take a step back. Not even necessarily taking a step back, but I would say taking a step forward and becoming an even better pro or better athlete when you observe these things and observing how you may react to certain situations, how your body may react to one thing, how your mental may react, who you are when things hit the fan and go south, and stepping towards that. I think that is the biggest thing that I would say for college athletes would be you should be intentional about it. And because there's so much going on from every different angle when you're talking about from the athletic department, the head athletic department, all the way down to the equipment staff, all the way down to the trainers. There's so many moving pieces that if you don't advocate for yourself and show that you're being intentional about your mental health and as well as your physical body, naturally you might just slip through the cracks because it's an operation at the end of the day. It's a corporation in the sense where so many moving pieces are happening. Everybody has a job, everybody has a title, everybody has a role that if you don't speak up about these things and, outreach and resource of ways to address them and observe them, it could slip through the cracks and you can end up paying for it, whether you know it or not. But it's something that I think today athletes are more advocate on, especially in the light of social media and just how transparent a lot of people are with their experiences these days. It's something that I'm happy for. It's happy for people coming up in sports right now and being able to focus on both their mental and their physical.
So really at that time, although it has shifted a lot since, it was very much the resources were there, but you had to take advantage of them. No one was going to lay out this path for you. It was, here's these things, but you need to be responsible and know what you need and ask for that support.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So going from being the 7th corner on the depth chart to a fairly successful career with Iowa and then moving on to Miami, how did you get from 7th on the depth chart to the success you had with both schools?
It goes back to my mom. At the end of the day, she's so hilarious. She was like, Emmanuel, if you do not play, why would I go to the games? I'm like, you're absolutely right. She's like, Emmanuel, I work. You need to play. I was like, okay. So I told her, I'm like, when I get to campus, I will play as a true freshman. I will be a true freshman. And she's like, okay. She listened to me when I told her I'd get a scholarship. And there's this thing I used to write down on my arm that I still share now with athletes, student athletes, leaders in that sense, organizations. And it was PTA. It was like plan, time, action. The plan was to play my freshman year. How much time I had was about fall camp and all of the season, right? Because you could have burned your red shirt back when I was playing. You played one play and your red shirt was gone. So I was like, if I can get one play, I will be a true freshman. But I'm thinking, all right, I want more than that. So I used to write this thing called plan time action on my wrist and put it together that that's what I want to do. And Desmond King, Greg Maben, uh, Anthony Gear, vets that I had like that, they were people that I would just ask the most, I'd ask a million questions. I would say that was where it started, where I would ask questions that I thought I knew the answer to. And if I didn't know them, I would try to seek the answer or try to confirm the answer. And I would just bug them continuously. I would go into a locker room, see who the guys were, the guys that were respected the most by coaches, the guys that were getting the most playing time, and I would just bug them and ask them ridiculous questions and say, hey, in a scenario where X, Y, and Z happens, even though it hasn't happened in 3 weeks, what would you do on this? Through that, I had an opportunity to camp where two guys were, camp is rigorous, so people are going to take a few days off. And once that happened, I flashed on the screen initially when I was at Iowa and got a chance to go up against George Kittle, who's a great and amazing player. And I made a few plays against George, and Coach Parker was like, who's that on the screen? Because I'm not even supposed to be on that field because I'm number 7 on the depth chart. And it's like my 4th day there, like my first week there, 2 weeks there. And he's like, who's that in the film? And I kind of raised my hand in the back. He was like, oh. And then it would just lead to an extra 2 reps in camp, then an extra 5 reps in camp. And then it got to a point where I was the number 3 corner on the depth chart. And it went back and reverted back to my mother where I'm like, man, it's really working. Like if I could just keep telling myself this is going to happen and I try to do everything that I possibly can towards it. And I'm a little bit lucky that, I will just be not granted these opportunities, but I'll earn these opportunities. And that's really where it started with the plan, PTA with plan time action, injuries, and as well as just my mom's mentality of, telling yourself where you're going to be and working towards that every day with a clear mindset and trying not to be discouraged even on the tough days. And then going on to Miami of Ohio, redshirt. That was my first time redshirting because I was a true freshman. While I was redshirting, I had to sit out my entire year. And I was telling myself the same thing. I'm telling my coach, we're going to win a MAC championship. I'm going to help you win a MAC championship. As soon as I get a chance to play, I'm going to help you win a MAC championship. If I don't get a chance to play, I'm going to be the best scout team player you have on this team for the whole year. That's what I'm going to do. One of my accolades that I have that I'm most proud of was that scout team player of the year. When I was at Miami, Ohio, I played receiver for the scout team because I played receiver in high school. The majority of my scholarships were that. And I came back and I told him, I said, I told you I'd be your best scout team player. And I'm like, now next year, I'm going to go win a MAC championship. And it just goes back to my mom's resilience, right? And just knowing that if I pick up the phone and I call my mom and be like, Mom, because I did. It's like, Mom, why is it so hard? Like, why is it so hard? We've been through so much. Why am I getting to a point where am I hitting a wall? Why is this so hard? And she would just tell me on the phone, and like, Emmanuel, what are you talking? She's like, what is hard? She's like, think about it. I raised you guys all by myself, 10 kids. What is hard? And I'd get off that phone and I'd be like, damn, she's right again. Like, stop complaining. Figure it out. Go ask the coach. Ask what you can do. Ask some older player. Figure it out, though, because, your mom wants to come to games. And she's hoping for you and she believes in you, so you should believe in yourself. That's something that I really, 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 really to this day still, doesn't matter what I'm doing. She is the whole heart of resilience and identity for me.
The question of what is hard, because I think it kind of has two connotations. There's what physically is hard right now, and also what does hard mean?
right? Because then you have to explain to her, and then through your explanation, you realize how you sound. You just cut yourself off halfway. You're like, you're right again. Like, what's hard? And you might say, oh, I'm not getting as much playing time. Then she'll ask, well, how much playing time are you getting? And I'd say, oh, X, Y, and Z. She said, so what are you doing with that? And then that's when it's like, okay, I get it. All right. Or like if your body hurts, well, are you not in the weight room? I am in the weight room, but don't you guys have trainers? And I'd be like, you're right. I do have trainers. I just have to get up an hour and a half earlier than I normally do every day. But if that's what I want to make my body feel good, it's not hard. They literally have resources for you to do that. So it's just, especially when she got to Iowa too, and she saw the facility. Oh, how dare I even complain? Both Iowa and Miami's facilities are great facilities, top notch, and the resources are great too. So she sees that and she's like, "You're gonna call me and complain from this place?" It's crazy.
Was there ever a excuse or a complaint that you voiced to your mom that got her? That like you were, oh, I see that you stumbled for a response to that.
That's the first time anybody's asked that. But there's not one. Just the other day, she told me, Emmanuel, if you want to be an astronaut, look up how to become an astronaut and start tomorrow. And she was being so serious. We were at a family party. She was being so serious. And I was like, my man, you are a tough woman. But like, she hasn't. It's always been, because she always sees the positive in you. She sees the best in people, right? If you even have the slightest thought of something, she assumes that and believes wholeheartedly that you can do it. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter what it is you're trying to do. She'll be right there to support you and tell you, yeah, you can do that. You can do it. You just have to keep doing it because you're going to get to it at some point. So it has a great question, but my God, she never has. No, never. No question has ever been like, oh, wow, I understand like how that must be. No.
I think the most powerful piece of her approach is that she always approaches it with action, which I think is lost a lot in how we talk about accomplishing things and achieving things. We do a lot of talking about what needs to happen and the planning and talking about what could get in my way and prevent me. But we often forget to just take the first step, which is actually doing something about it.
Yeah, literally. That first step just kind of, your first step will take you to a step you didn't even see was coming. Just off because you tried and you led you to another thing and led you to another thing. And that's really how we get anywhere in life. It's just by taking a step.
And we always work it up to be more usually than it is in our heads. Oh, we're going to run into all of these problems. And then sometimes you take that first step and you're like, oh, that was it. There's no resistance. This is what
Yeah.
I've been worrying and stressed about. But until we take that action, we don't know.
Yeah, that is true.
So going from some consistent productive seasons in the NCAA, you ended up signing with the Browns as an undrafted free agent after the 2021 NFL draft. You were also the first Rwandan to sign an NFL contract. When the Browns opportunity came, what did that moment mean to you beyond football?
It was something that wasn't just for me, wasn't just for my family. Um, it was for one, because all Rwandans around the world, uh, they reached out in different ways, different places, Australia, Italy, Rwanda, Europe, and as if I got drafted first round. And it was like, to me, that meant everything because it showed me what is possible if you just continuously forth like your best foot and just continuously grind and have a positive attitude. it's kind of stopped being just football again. Like it was another moment where I was like, I know that for whatever reason, this is how it played out, and I didn't know that that was the case. I just thought I was somebody chasing a dream. And when the news came out that I was the first Rwandan, my first thought was, there's no way there's not another kid out there who's better than me. Like, there's no way in that. And that really started my like impact, my social impact that I wanted to do. I did some in high school at the high school level, but when I signed with the Browns is when it really dawned on me that this is something I want to give myself to. Like football is the vehicle at the end of the day. And then when that happened, it was another little gift wrap box that football gave me. Like, hey, this is an impact that can go farther than your body can take you in that sense. And just sharing your testimony on how and why things came about and continuing to do that with the Browns, with the Lions, with the Elks, and with the work that I do now is when it really started. It became way more than just football, way more than myself, and even bigger than my family to me. And my family meant everything to me. So you can only imagine how I was feeling and, how appreciative and observing of the situation I was at hand. And I really can't even fathom how much support from the different parts of the globe was given, and something I'll never forget. Absolutely.
I'm really curious because this is something that I felt like I dealt with a little bit, and there's some kind of similarities where you're being the first of something. Like you said, there's so much more that comes with it. There's more responsibility, more opportunity, and all this impact you can make. I'm curious because I know I felt this way sometimes, and I always was able to walk myself out of it, but it would get quite heavy where you kind of are just wishing like, hey, like I really wish I could just pursue this job like anyone else or this opportunity like anyone else without all of this additional weight and expectation. Did you ever have feelings like that?
Yeah, because you don't ask for it. You know what I mean? You do not ask for it, but it's like it comes with a responsibility that it's going to fatigue you, right? Because there's something that needs to be built off of that, whether we want to say it or not. And we have an effort to do so in that because people that helped you and I get to that point of being the first to do something, they probably got tired along the way. They probably were fatigued with the work that they were doing. It just shows that every single person is accounted for. Every single person's effort is accounted for. And in these circumstances for you and I, that's just what was accounted for us. It's not like it was something that was asked of or we chose it, but you want to say, we wish we could just pursue this job just like anybody else. Wholeheartedly, 100%. Like I thought that at some points. But then I just thought, man, how fortunate am I to be in this position? And there's a reason that I'm in this position, regardless of what it looks like day in and day out. I know that, my efforts are being accounted for.
It's a really powerful way to put it and really just feeds into how everything's really just about mindset. Because I mean, realistically, you could look at 9-year-old Manny and your mom signing you up for football and be like, oh, like, mom, you gave me all of this responsibility. This is too much. Why did you do that? Or you can look at it from the perspective of this is the best thing that's ever happened, that could have happened. Look at all of the blessings that it's brought me.
Definitely. That's when you mention that, I think like it just makes me think like I wonder if my mom ever thought that, like if she was just like, man, this kid's complaining on the phone, but man, I signed him up for football and changed his life. Like, no, you're so right. Like Imagine being 9 years old. I know it's said in I think I forget what passage it is, but it says if you knew the road you had to take to get to where you're going, you wouldn't take it. Right. And I think that's part of it too. And I think that's for anybody with success. You don't predict your worst days, but your worst days are still your worst days that you do not want to relive. But like your best days are your best days, and it just, if, yeah, if I had to, there definitely was a lot of responsibility, and you have to grow up fast. You have to grow up and fast and understand that there's more that's asked of you versus your peers. Not to say anybody's, needing to do more than somebody else, but like you don't ask for certain things. And football definitely gave me plenty on my plate that, you didn't ask for, but I'm fortunate to have.
So when your opportunity came to an end with the Browns, what were your next steps? Did you have a plan in place right away, or were you uncertain about what your next move was?
Of course, my first step was to try to get another opportunity in the NFL. Absolutely. I remember that summer I came back in August or September, I believe, September. And my first thought was to get another opportunity in the NFL. But at the same time, I was thinking I wanted to get into some form of entrepreneurship, but I just had that urge to continuously play football. And I had an agent. Agent was letting me know, you know, there might be some opportunity in the CFL. A few months went by in the NFL. I'm just like trying to hold on to the NFL, hold on to the NFL. Then I thought to myself, I'm like, let me call my agent. Told my agent that I'd like the opportunity to go to the CFL. And the first thing I wanted to do was just be around family first, knowing how much time football has taken away from the time you're 18 and you leave home. Being gone for like 5 years at a time and just wanting to be around family. But afterwards, I was more than willing to come to the CFL, and it was a great decision that I made, and the opportunities that I had to come out here, I felt like aligned well with the fire that I had to still play football.
What did the CFL chapter demand from you that the NCAA, the NFL, high school didn't?
It was almost like it demanded it demanded me to be comfortable being uncomfortable. University of Iowa, I knew a few guys that went there at some point. It was 2.5 hours from home. Miami of Ohio was a school that I almost committed to before I committed to Iowa. So I was very, very familiar with that. Even when I went to the Browns, I had guys that I played football with in that sense growing up on the Browns. And when I went to the CFL, I was going to an entirely new country. It was the first time I ever left the country since ever coming to America. It was a new game, and they told me to pack for 2 weeks. And I was like, I'm packing up into another country for 2 weeks. I got to be extremely comfortable being uncomfortable. Rookie mini camp only 3 days. Guys getting cut on day one. Guys getting cut in the first 12 hours. You're just like, whoa. You've got a ratio. You've got the ratio rule going on where you're not just competing for your position, you're competing with every other American on the team. It was like it was one of the most uncomfortable transitions where I was just unknown of what could come. And it demanded me to be even more firm and try and be around the right people as soon as possible. And trying to be around like leaders, TJ or GP, and just trying to assimilate to the Canadian Football League as quick as you can when you have a clock. You have a clock going on where you only have 2 weeks to make a play, or you only have 3 days to make a play. And We flew into rookie minicamp. I missed the first day because my flight was all messed up. So I got in at like 4 a.m. and we had practice at like 6 or something like that. So it was just, I couldn't believe it. I said, and mind you, your family and everybody around you is so excited when you sign that contract, not knowing like this is going to be the hardest thing you've had to do up to this date. Like, don't get me wrong, college is hard, the NFL was hard, but you get those circumstances on you after just being told like you're getting cut. That was a form of being uncomfortable that I had not been exposed to yet.
I really enjoyed that perspective on that because it provided a lot more. I think I've heard it a lot more from the Canadian side of things, which I would argue is a little bit more comfortable. But being the American coming in and it's things got to happen quickly. And even hearing you say in comparison to NCAA and NFL, there's just more demanded of you right away, make it happen, is something that I actually hadn't really considered to that extent, which is an interesting thought pattern to explore of, what is the perspective of Americans coming up and, being a part of the CFL and what that kind of kickoff is, especially as a DB.
Yeah, you got people running at you that should be not moving. But it's a beautiful game though. Like for me, after that, we had 2 days. Oh man, right. Reminds me about the 2 days. 2 days were just ruled illegal in the States like a few years before. When you come back into the CFL, they're like, we running 2 days. Oh man, it was crazy. But yeah, after the first half of the first 2 day, I kind of got a little used to people running at me. And but as a defensive back, yeah, it was something that it took. If you didn't learn fast, you didn't have a lot of time. You were not going to.
Do you think there's something that could be done in the CFL or on a club level to not necessarily make people more comfortable, but to just allow athletes a little bit more room to be successful coming up to this game?
To be honest, I love the way it is right now because people come up from that. If people come from the America and they come to the CFL, and some might not have as much knowledge of the game and might brush it off or might have some kind of attitude or some kind of, not saying they have an attitude towards it, but it's just a different perspective of it. And I feel like the beauty of the CFL is that it's its own game. You know what I mean? Like, it's its own game. It's been around for 115, 113, 20 years or something like that, longer than the NFL has been around. I feel like, of course, there's little tweaks here and there every few years that they have, but more so, I love what the CFL does. I love the competitive nature that it brings in that, and how fast you have to be ready for that, because it gives you a sense of professionalism that you know is quick, and I feel like that goes a long way in the CFL game as an American coming up, because you appreciate it so much more once you live in it, once you even watch it. And even hearing fans that take the time to watch CFL football in America, they're realizing that's a whole different, it's not the same game. There's fewer downs, more points being scored. It's fewer teams, so you could kind of latch onto a team and a program kind of more quickly. There's just so many different things and nuances about the difference of the leagues that when we're talking about getting people to move, like getting people assimilated faster, I feel like this is the CFL. You gotta conform to the CFL. The CFL can't conform to you. Through my personal experience, it's just like, nah, I love the CFL. I love it. And if anybody ever has an opinion on something or ever wants to pick my brain on it, I'd be more than willing to speak on it. But I love how the CFL has gone about the fast pace of the game, even the fast pace training camp, because not a lot of learning going on. It's more of performing out the gate, where there's a bunch of mini camps in the States a lot of the time. But in the CFL, you gotta come up, you gotta pull up, you gotta show out. And I really do appreciate how they have gone about that. I mean, for Americans listening, it's a competitive place. Nothing comes easy, and I don't think that should change.
I always echo the same thoughts of, NFL and the CFL, they're two completely different sports. They're both football, but at the end of the day, everything functions a lot differently, everything moves a lot differently, and the expectations of athletes are very different. And I mean, over my years, the amount of Americans that would come up and be like, "Man, this is so cool. This is amazing." And I think it's really great when there is guys who have made a name as Americans who talk about the game so positively, because I think there is a lot of American players who miss out on a lot of really positive opportunities in the CFL just because there's this preconceived notion of it being a certain way when that in fact is not reality.
Yeah, I would say that too. Definitely. It's a lot of fun. If you're American and you're looking for opportunity, the CFL is a great place to go.
Agreed. And I mean, it's done so well for you, which I want to get into a little bit now of life after football. So the chapter you're in now, I think it's more than just a life after football conversation. We started off by talking about this a little bit, but it's more about everything that you're building with what football gave you. When you look at your life right now, what is the most important to you in this chapter?
I would say ownership. I would say that's the most important thing. Ownership of my time, my direction, where I'd like to put my impact, what I'm creating, and building something that outlives me, outlives the game of football, outlives Emmanuel Rugamba, the football player. I would say that's the biggest thing, because with football, so many things have been predetermined for you as far as scheduling wise, and it always made you excited because you knew what the next target was, right? You knew on week 7 I got this receiver who's been tearing the league apart. I can't wait to see him, or whatever the case may be. But right now, this life chapter after football, whatever the case may be, is the ownership of your time and the ownership of your, the direction, the impact you're making. I feel like that goes a long way, because football is that vehicle, right? Football is that vehicle, and it takes you to the stops that you want to get off on or want to keep riding on, and the stop that it dropped me off at is ownership. I feel like that ownership for myself, ownership for my family, and just being able to spend time around them and do it freely.
I want to talk specifically about flag football in Rwanda because I saw the other day your post seeing your quote, "What a time to be alive." And I know from talking to you and knowing your story, obviously not my lived experience, but just considering the gravity of that situation, what does it mean to you that flag football is going to be in Rwanda?
It just goes back to that moment of knowing that football has given me so much, and it's allowed me to be a part of so many different things, that the flag football going on in Rwanda is, again, another gift in the box that football has given me. Knowing that that's something that is going to outlive Emmanuel Rugamba, is going to outlive Emmanuel Rugamba's career, is going to outlive whatever the case is, and it goes back to how you said you feel like, oh, there's this responsibility of X, Y, and Z because you've had or been granted the opportunity to be the first at something. And it just goes to show that, like we said, everybody's efforts are accounted for. And the flag football community in Rwanda and the efforts as they've been putting in for the last year and a half, be able to see that in real time and even be in collaboration with them and be talking about ways to grow the game in itself. It just goes back to what I say about building something that lives yourself and being a part of something that's bigger than yourself. And goes back to that moment when I became the first Rwanda, and the first thing I thought was, there's definitely some kid out there better than me at football, or has the better metrics, has the better, taller, faster, stronger, built to last longer. And to fast forward to 2026 and to see the game of flag football growing in Rwanda, I'm just glad that, that possibility can be a thing where I won't be the last one to play in the NFL. And if I can have any hand in that, any kind of aid in that, any kind of support, any kind of counted efforts, it means the world to me.
When you think about a kid in Rwanda touching this game for the first time, what do you hope changes for them?
Perspective. In whichever perspective, in a positive manner, whichever way that may look to them. Whatever that football looks like to them and whatever perspective that football gives them, that's what I would wish for them, is a an, a new visual, a new visualization, something that they can imagine themselves doing. If they're holding that football and they can imagine themselves owning a football team, that's what I want for them. If they can hold that football and imagine themselves scoring touchdowns, that's what I want for them. If they hold that football and they think, wow, I can't wait to coach, that's what I want for them. They hold that football and they're like, hey, wow, I want to take care of the players that play this game. I want that for them because football has so many avenues, so many forms of vehicles that can take you to places and opportunities that are life-changing and life-lasting. The relationships you build that you're able to steward. So that's what I would like for them, is perspective. And however that perspective kind of manifests in their head is what I would like for them. Not to have a clear-cut example of what it is, but just to hold that football and have some kind of perspective that comes with it.
Speaking of what you want for others, you've also recently started doing speaking work. And right now you have that centered around discipline, identity, and leadership. Why those three themes?
Goes back to that woman we keep talking about. Goes back to my mother. Like, she is not shy, but she isn't the most super vocal person, but she'll speak when she needs to speak. And I just want to continue to share the things that she's instilled in me that have given me the platform that I have to even speak on those things. That's my biggest thing, is just continuing her message, continuing through my life experiences and how that message has shaped me, knowing that, if I can help other people in that sense, young people, or not just young people, but organizations that I've been able to work with and leaders, and reiterate the same lessons that my mother gave, or I feel the lessons are universal in that sense. And they are rooted in those three things that you mentioned. And going back to that question you asked about what kind of man would I want my mother to say that she raised, is, someone who doesn't quit and someone who resembles her mindset that she's tackled life with. And that is one of the best ways that I know how. Very fortunate with my time with the BC Lions and my time in the CFL as well as the NFL, and being able to visit over 120 plus schools and seeing 80, 90 different dialects in one school, and seeing myself and some of those students coming to a different country and seeing that, we're trying to find a form of identity, or trying to find and understand what things may look like for themselves. And if I can be a pillar of hope and a pillar of, motivation and even guidance through mentorship, is it goes back to me trying to emulate who my mom is.
What do you think the difference between inspiring people and actually impacting them is?
Giving them something tangible. I feel like, you can inspire people, but the biggest thing I try to do with all of my keynotes or workshops that I do with organizations or school districts is giving something that can be applied today. I feel like that's the biggest one. And I know we keep going back to my mother, but you know how you mentioned how she has that when she speaks life into you, she speaks the next action, or in her opinion, a form of action. I feel like that is the difference between motivation and um, trying to inspire somebody. It's giving them something tangible that they can apply that day. Because you don't have to be there for every step. But if you can aid them in the first 2, 3, then, you know, maybe down the road they reach back out to you and they say, hey, you remember that time that you said X, Y, and Z? A lot like the voice that I hear in my head when I'm talking about my mom and overlapping of scenarios in life. And you're like, wow, she was right about that one again. So it's all about being tangible and being able to apply it.
I think that's really important, and I think it gets lost a lot. I mean, there's a lot of speakers, there's a lot of mentors, and, you know, especially with social media, there's so many people talking about how to be successful. But, you know, it's all great when you can give someone that excitement of, I'm going to do the things, but will they actually go out and do the things? It's giving them the comfort and the confidence to actually take action that makes the biggest impact.
Definitely that action. Action is everything in that. It's what moves things, right? Even if you don't have a plan, if you take action, you know, something will happen.
You'll know what does work or what doesn't work. And like, you can't start a fire unless you try starting a fire.
Let me use that.
Yeah. You can't just stare at the wood and expect it to spontaneously combust, but you actually have to try something. All right, we're going to finish up with 2 things here. We're going to jump into some fast fire, and then we'll wrap up with a closing question. So fast fire, the way it works is first answer that comes to mind, no explanation, no justification. What lie have you told yourself the longest?
I can put it off. I'll just do it tomorrow.
What's a compliment that hits you the hardest?
You remind me of your mom.
What's one thing that you're absolutely elite at that has nothing to do with football?
I have a really good pattern recognition.
What's your toxic trait in high pressure environments?
I might express myself without thinking about others' feelings.
What's the quickest way for a coach to lose a room?
Disrespect your players.
What still scares you?
Tearing my ACL.
What would younger Manny be most proud of?
Taking his mom's advice.
What's one question you wish people asked you more often?
Who are you outside of football?
What's your most dramatic habit?
Getting places too early.
Who is the most annoying receiver you've ever played against?
Lucky Whitehead. Lucky Whitehead is going to talk to you through the route, during the route, through the sweep, after the touchdown, on the sideline, while you're getting water, at your locker. Oh my goodness, throw Alexander Hollins on there. Yeah, Alexander Hollins, number 1.
What's one thing your inner child would say about your life now that would be hilarious?
Somebody married you?
All right, that is all for Fast Fire. Thank you very much. You handled that very, very well.
Thank you.
So last question I want to get to leave off on a big impact and very in line with where you are at in life right now. If someone listens to this while they're in the middle of a hard, uncertain, identity-shaking season of life, what would you want to remind them of?
I'd want to remind them of where you are is not who you are, and what you're becoming is greater than what you failed at.
I love it. Manny Rugamba, thank you very much for hopping on the podcast. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Coach Tanya. I appreciate you.